by film.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
All aboard!
And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
On page 394.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
That is so fetch.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dive.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Where's my super suit?
Hey, Fat Lard, come get some dinner.
Well,
I am not drinking any f***ing Merlot.
And I'm gonna try to forget the fact that you're a girl. But dogs can look up.
Oh, durga.
you tell me what I saw this woman? This is the Polar Express.
Okay. All right, well, welcome everyone to a brand new episode of 20 Years, 4 Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to re-watching movies from at least 2 decades ago while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother,
Tim.
And we are coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. In this episode, we will be watching the second half of Quentin Tarantino's love letter to old school martial arts and Western films in Kill Bill Volume 2. Before we start, though, we typically take a few minutes to discuss any new movies or television that we have watched recently. I know we're going to talk about one for sure. Aside from that one, did you have...
I didn't have anything else.
The only one I'm going to talk about right now, and I off-air talked to your wife about this because I recommended it to her.
How dare you?
Is a movie called Snack Shack. I'm not kidding. I know, and it makes it seem like it's a.
Where do you find these? Last episode was like hundreds of beavers. Now we got Snack Shack.
I know,
Like,
and TikTok made me do it.
sorry, what's the movie about?
No, and it's so Snack Shack. It's a movie takes place in the early '90s in Nebraska, and it's 2 friends in high school who decide to bid out the Snack Shack at the local pool for the summer to like run it.
Huh.
And they do, and so they're 2 best friends, and one of which is kind of like they're both kind of classic sort of stoner, and they brew their own beer kind of a thing. And it stars the kid from Fabelmans, so the main kid from Fabelmans, and a couple other people you would like recognize facially, but I couldn't tell you their name necessarily. Sure. And so and then some of the stereotypical things happen, like the beautiful girl moves in next door, that they both kind of fall for. And fight over a little bit, and then there's some like D-bag other guys that they fight with a little bit, but I don't want to say it's not an all-time classic by any means. It's got a lot of cliched lines, it's got a lot of things, but it's a really interesting sort of coming of age style movie.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
It's not slapstick, it's not like a raunchy comedy, you know what I mean? It's much more in the vein of Dazed and Confused. Everybody wants some of the same vein, obviously.
Okay.
I don't know, some of those movies that's nostalgia based.
Huh.
It's got one of the best Mannheim Steamroller jokes I've ever heard, which is a low bar, I know, but you just kind of go, yeah. So it's got that vibe, it's got probably 3 different montages of, or not montages, but like, sad music in the background and them moving in slow motion or whatever. And so it checks off all the right boxes. I really would recommend it to anyone listening. It's called Snack Shack. It's R. It's it's a hard R kind of a movie, but only for language. There's not like a raunchy comedy feel to it, which is nice. So
cool.
I'd recommend that. So, but aside from that, the topic of this week, aside from all you tortured poets out there, and the Taylor Swift,
is that
which is today. So by the time this goes live in a few weeks, that'll be old news, and nobody will be talking about Taylor Swift anymore.
Her dominance will be done.
But anyway, the other big news from an entertainment standpoint of this week is the show Fallout on Amazon
Prime.
Prime. And Tim, what did you think of Fallout?
So I have never played the video games, and I was kind of like, this looks interesting. And it's from the showrunners, Jonathan Nolan and his wife, who did Westworld and Person of Interest, which I think some people have seen.
Yeah, I heard the show.
Yeah, I heard the show. it's one of those things where I was like, sign me up. This looks really cool. The trailer was interesting. And I don't know. And so I started it Friday, and I cannot remember the last time I've seen a show like this where I was like dying to watch every episode. Like the binge effect, we've become like the
Stranger Things is last. I mean,
like,
it's just,
right?
Yep.
The pendulum's kind of swung back towards many things now being like week to week releases, where I haven't really seen a show like this that I've wanted to binge, and it was absolutely flat out incredible.
Yep.
You had texted me on Friday like, "Oh, you started?" I was like, "I'm doing it right now,"
Yep.
and it was like 2 hours later.
Yeah, I think my only response to you was just like, dude.
Yeah, I was dude. I was like, "Well, it must be good," and we talked earlier with Ellen about this. Like, if you don't want to watch more after the first 10 minutes, you're not. It's not the show for you.
Yeah, you know what you're getting. I mean, the weirdness of some of it, you don't know what you're getting into, but you know the tone. Like the beginning sets the tone.
Yes.
Of the entire thing, and if you're not hooked in the first 10 minutes, you're like, then just be done.
And for those,
and maybe you can give it a half hour then, because then they go in the vault
Sure.
after. So if you're not hooked in the 10 minutes, you give it another 20. If you're not ready to go by then, just move on to
It's
something
not
else
for
and be fine with it.
but once you get past that, and it's not even past that, it's like I was hooked right away.
Yeah,
But it's a show about basically what happens when nuclear annihilation occurs,
when, not if.
and 200 years after, people that lived in a vault have to grapple with possibly coming out or the impact of that, and that's it. I mean, watch the trailer if you want, but it's so freaking good. It's hard to undersell production value, music choices, the acting. Walton Goggins is a goddamn treasure.
Yeah, if you somehow at this point, which by the way, he's 53.
Yeah.
Like he was on 90210 for an episode in the early 90s. He's
so
around that
good.
long. I mean, he is the definition of what is it, an overnight success after 10 years or whatever.
Yes.
Like it took 10 years to become an overnight success, which happens in Hollywood a lot.
Yeah.
He's outstanding. If nothing else, then you can go back and watch Justified. If this makes you finally start watching Justified,
I will.
if you like him, you know, and he's also Righteous Gemstones. The only reason to watch is for him.
He's incredible. Sons
Vice
of
Principals.
Anarchy.
Yep.
He was so good.
Yep.
So yeah,
I would echo everything you just said. I don't want to go too far into the weeds here, but I would just say it's been, what did I text you? It was since Stranger Things.
Yeah.
There was one other show I think I mentioned in there, and now I'm suddenly blanking on that hooked me as quickly.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been really rare for a show to hook me as quickly and go, I'm in.
Yep.
Like, yep. And it delivered.
And stick the landing. Every aspect of it. Yeah. It's, if you liked Westworld, Watchmen,
Yep.
Game of Thrones.
I would say Watchmen's probably its closest.
Yes. Like variation of that kind of vibe where it's weird.
I think I said Last of Us.
Yes. Last of Us.
Yeah.
Yes. That as well. That's last summer, and Stranger Things. If you liked any of those, you're going to enjoy it. It's so good.
Top 5 side ones, track ones.
We begin our episodes with our first segment, High Fidelity.
Now, the making of a good compilation tape is a very subtle art.
This is where we take a common theme from our subject film and each pick our top 5 choices within that subject. This is High Fidelity.
Now get your patchouli stick out of my store! Move it, lard ass!
So, well, Kill Bill is very clearly a revenge film at its core. So to keep the High Fidelity simple, we are going to be ranking our top 5 revenge films of all time. From my view of this, it was there were films where the central theme is driven by one or more of the characters' desire for revenge. I think there are movies where characters get revenge, but it's not like the movie was about this thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I had a similar thing. I was like,
is Taken on your list?
It is not.
But that, to me, Taken is a revenge film because it's
an honorable mention.
Yeah. He's like, so that makes sense. Literally, the entire story is him saving his daughter.
Yes.
But I'm not even sure it's revenge necessarily.
Nope.
He's just rescuing her. And so I kind of was like, it was an interesting trying. So I actually have 10 on my list, and I was like,
oh, wow.
I was ranking 5. Like, I was trying to rank the top 5, you know? So what are some of your honorable mentions?
In the Bedroom.
Okay.
Which is one we've covered. The Mask of Zorro.
Yep.
and I had to put on because Kill Bill
Okay.
and Taken were some of my like honorable mentions. But I had the same type of idea of like the central theme is around seeking revenge for something, and I added in the caveat of the murder of somebody in their life.
Yeah.
So that was like my little qualifier. But yeah, those are some honorable.
I had a few
What about you?
honorable mentions. I'm going to hold off on one of them mentioning because I think it's going to be on your list. So I want to talk about it then. Cape Fear, either option.
Oh yeah.
Because again, that's not a good guy revenge film. That's a bad, like the bad guy is getting revenge there.
Yep.
I saw a list, and maybe this on your that had Gladiator as a revenge film, and I was like, you know what, it is, but that wasn't the driving force of him. Like he wanted to get revenge, but I didn't get that sense. I have In the Bedroom, and then I have Promising Young Woman on there.
I haven't seen that yet.
And you haven't seen it.
I want to. Yeah.
So that was an honorable mention. I have one on
Nice.
there. So what's your number 5?
Speaking of bad guys getting their revenge, number 5 is Die Hard with a Vengeance for me.
I had that thought of that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Simon trying to get revenge against John McClane for killing his brother Hans, but using it as a guise for like a huge heist. Like, I love that movie unabashedly. It is what it is, but that was a fun revenge one.
A hill that I will die on is the best Die Hard movie. And I know people love the first one, and don't get me wrong, so do I. But I could watch Die Hard with a Vengeance 10 times in a day.
I would say that.
And I could watch Die Hard once in a day. Like, I would be done after one time. Like, it is the best of all of them. And actually, Die Hard 4...
That's from
Live Free or Die Hard is actually I like better than the original 2. But anyway, Die Hard with a Vengeance is a great option.
My number 5. What's yours?
My number 5 is a film you haven't seen. We've talked about Payback.
I almost was gonna watch it for the happy hour.
Tonight, I watched Payback because it was a 1990. We'll talk about it in the next episode with 1999.
Yep.
Mel Gibson, just a fun because that's is that Curtis Hanson? No, that's Helgeland. It's a well written movie. Payback.
Nice.
Talked about it before. I'll talk about it next episode. So.
Cool. Good teaser.
What's your 4?
Number 4 is It.
Huh.
Bill seeking revenge for killing Georgie was my in, but I was like, me and Stephen King, anything I can have with him, but
never would have considered it, but all right.
Yeah. The collective chapter 1 and 2, not the TV series, but the two of them, that was
terrific
my 4th.
Movies. I love both those movies.
They're so, It chapter 1 is unreal with how good it is. But that was my
chapter
number 4.
2 has examples that there's always examples, and I know we've talked about before what I would change for a movie, and that's always one of them. But I still love that movie.
It's so good.
My number 4 is Django Unchained.
Ooh.
I almost didn't include it because he wanted to go get his wife back.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
But I would imagine that any slave in that scenario would be getting revenge on you know what I mean? So like, he also knew he could identify those brothers and, kind of, and so I put Django on. There are actually quite a few Tarantino movies that could be on here.
Yep.
So if I have Django Unchained as number 4.
Nice.
I love that movie more and more over time.
I definitely have I have a new appreciation or a renewed, I guess, appreciation for what it's accomplishing.
What do you got?
Number 3 was Hannah for me.
Yeah.
The
Really
Eric Heller main character, his revenge, but doing it via proxy with training his daughter.
Yep.
To kill Marissa Viegler.
Yeah.
The style of it, I remember watching the theater like, this is fantastic. And I will always have a special place in my heart because it was the first adult vibe movie that I watched with Audrey. And she loved it.
It's and it's an unexpectedly good movie.
It's so good.
Yep.
So yeah, it's that was number 3.
My number 3 is Road to Perdition.
I was wondering if you, yep.
It's all driven by revenge.
Yes.
The whole thing. His wife and son are murdered, and that's all he does is he wants revenge on just the son. That's it.
Yes.
Love it. We've covered it on the show. We know how we
check
feel
out the
about
episode.
it. Yep.
It's so good. Number 2 for me was Memento.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best in my view of the but a different vibe of that type of revenge, getting revenge for his wife's killing. But yeah.
Number 2 is Memento for me as well.
Nice.
So yeah, let's kind of move on to
Yep.
Tim, what's your number 1?
Go check Inglourious Bastards.
I didn't consider it I didn't consider it a revenge film, so I didn't put it on my list.
For me, having the opening sequence be the introduction to, oh my gosh, Christoph Waltz's character's name. I can't.
Hans
something. Yeah. But Shoshana becomes like the through line through the stories later, as she's then seeking revenge. She does not get revenge against him.
No, she doesn't. Yeah.
But in the end, what stood out for me was the people that are basically working with and on behalf, but she gets a better revenge in many ways for the killings of her kind, basically. So that was I was like, I didn't want to have Kill Bill. And I was like, ooh, looking through, I was like, yeah, for me, that's my favorite revenge. Hans Landa, yes.
I didn't have it because I just ended up not including it as a revenge film because like half of the people in the movie are not driven by revenge. They're just soldiers.
Yep.
The only person who is driven by revenge actually is only driven by revenge for the last like half, when she like her character did not exist as a result of the revenge. Like that wasn't her goal. It only happened to be her goal once the Germans came to her. Like she was just trying to live her life. You know what I mean? So I didn't quite get there.
That was me.
I have Kill Bill 1 and 2 as my number one. Nice. I think it's just from a revenge film standpoint, to me, we loved number 1. I know we'll love number 2 again.
Yep.
It's like to me, it's the perfect example. And there are other ones. Again, there are lots of Westerns we haven't watched. There's lots of old Clint Eastwood films were all kinds of revenge films. So there's a ton that we haven't watched. But for me, it's the quintessential, like the only reason this film and story exists is for revenge. That's it.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
All right. Well, as mentioned earlier, we'll be rewatching 2004's Kill Bill Volume 2. The film is the completion of a 2-part saga that follows our main protagonist, known simply as the Bride, who is hellbent on revenge against her former hit squad, the Deadly Viper assassins. At the end of Part 1, the Bride, spoiler alert, the Bride has eliminated 2 of the 5 members, and we have found out that the child she thought was dead is actually alive, though she has not discovered this yet. Part 2 follows the Bride as she finishes her revenge tour, gets trapped in a shallow grave, flashes back to her training days, and inevitably culminates in a final showdown with the group's leader, Bill. The film is written and directed by Quentin Tarantino and stars Uma Thurman, David Carradine, Michael Madsen is actually in this one, and Daryl Hannah.
But you haven't by any chance kept up with your swordplay?
I pawned that years ago.
You hawked a Hattori Hanzo sword?
Yep.
It was priceless.
Well, not in El Paso, it ain't. In El Paso, I got me $250 for it. I'm a bouncer in a titty bar, Bill. If she wants to fight with me, all she's got to do is come down to the club and start some shit, and we'll be in a fight.
I know we haven't spoken in some time. And the last time we spoke wasn't the most pleasant. But you've got to get over being mad at me and start becoming afraid of you, because she is coming, and she's coming to kill you. And unless you accept my assistance, I have no doubt she will succeed.
I don't dodge guilt, and I don't chew out of paying my comeuppance.
Can we just forget the past?
That woman deserves her revenge. And we deserve to die. But then again, so does she.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
This is a social network.
You don't have to be an intellectual property expert to understand the difference between right and wrong.
Where we take a look back at the critical and fan reception from 2 decades ago.
Mark!
As usual, Tim takes point on this, so take it away, Tim.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything. $1 billion.
The IMDb rating is 8 out of 10, which Volume 1 was
really high.
8.2 or 3, I forget, but very high. David Anson of Newsweek said, Volume 2 fills in the motivational and emotional blanks that left Volume 1 tasting more like a meal made only of appetizers. Jay Boyar of Orlando Sentinel said, although Volume 2 certainly doesn't skimp on the action, there's far less killing here than Volume 1, and as the themes deepen, the film assumes an expected poignancy. And Roger Ebert, much like he gave the first one, gave Volume 2 4 out of 4, said Tarantino's Volume 2 is an exuberant celebration of movie making, coasting with heedless joy from one audacious chapter to another, working as irony, as satire, as drama, as pure action. Now that we know the whole story, capped off by an extraordinary final meeting between the bride and Bill, it is greater than its two parts, and together the volumes are a masterful saga that celebrates the martial arts genre while kidding it, loving it, and ultimately transcending it. So good on you, Raj. That's a good one. Academy Awards that year, I gotta say, I was still surprised. Not too surprised, but also like, really? For the totality of the experience? But no nominations that year.
And I guess it was the very first Academy screener to go out too. So I mean, it was on people's radar and everything, but it just didn't click. So
weird.
That fucking, like, was it David Anson who talked about the appetizer versus the meal? Like, it was the whole appetizer was a meal. It's the first of two movies, you dick.
Yeah.
It's an appetizer.
Yeah, now I've had the whole meal. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay. All right. Whatever. Okay. Well, there we go. We are going to pause and rewatch the movie. If you are so inclined, go right ahead and watch along with us. If not, we will see you on the other side of this break. Here now is Kill Bill, Volume 2.
A staple of the superhero mythology is there's the superhero and there's the alter ego. Batman is actually Bruce Wayne. Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. When that character wakes up in the morning, he's Peter Parker. He has to put on a costume to become Spider-Man. And it is in that characteristic Superman stands alone. Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When Superman wakes up in the morning, he's Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent. His outfit with the big red S. That's the blanket he was wrapped in as a baby when the Kents found him. Those are his clothes. What Kent wears, the glasses, the business suit, that's the costume. That's the costume Superman wears to blend in with us. Clark Kent is how Superman views us. And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak. He's unsure of himself. He's a coward. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race. Sort of like Beatrix Kiddo and Mrs. Tommy Plimpton.
So, the point emerges.
You would have worn the costume of Arlene Plimpton, but you were born Beatrix Kiddo. And every morning when you woke up, you'd still be Beatrix Kiddo. Oh, you can take the needle out.
Are you calling me a superhero?
I'm calling you a killer. A natural born killer. You always have been, and you always will be.
All right, well, welcome back to 20 Years, 4 Beers, where we have just finished rewatching Kill Bill Volume 2, and also have enjoyed or had 4 new beers that we will review in a segment coming up. But first, we begin our discussion with our reaction segment that we call Spotlight.
This is Boston, and the church does not want them to be found. So, they are not there.
This is where we highlight and discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching our subject film.
We've got 2 stories here. We've got a story about degenerate clergy
And we've got a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know. Maybe they do.
This is Spotlight.
They knew, and they let it happen.
Do you have first thoughts? Do you want to?
So my particular clarification in my top 5 or favorite 5. Hold on.
Revisionist history.
No.
Okay.
Revenge movies was like taking revenge for a murder, and we know that the daughter doesn't die.
Plenty of murders.
Tommy, the husband, dies. So I get these things,
and
but really it's driven like. So I did not include it. That being said, I can absolutely agree with your decision of the
There's
top
way more
being,
revenge in this than Inglourious Bastards. This entire movie is revenge.
Yes.
Come on. I love Inglourious. No, don't get me wrong. Inglourious Bastards
It's his
is
best.
Tarantino's masterpiece, in my opinion, and it's not even
Yes.
close. So, like, if I could include it on a list, I was going to do it. No.
But watching this, I'm like, oh, I have to tell Steve. Like,
It's all revenge.
It is. So right out the gate, this movie is fantastic, and the culminating experience of Volume 1 into this is just 4 hours of awesomeness. Truly, and like enjoyable and compelling and interesting. Very different style that we'll talk through of the two of them, but I was like, damn it, yeah, this is a very good revenge.
It is for me. I want to just say, like, thank God they released this in 2 movies. They were originally trying to figure out how to do it in one.
Yep.
Because again, we talk about this Lord of the Rings. We talk about this with some other film franchises or whatever that are one film split into or one story split into 3 films.
Yes.
And this is one story split into 2 films.
Sure.
But just the 2 parts are so fundamentally different films.
Yep.
That I really don't think it would have worked as one.
You need the split.
Right. Like,
Absolutely.
it really wouldn't have worked. It would have been this jumble of, because part 1 is more of an Eastern style film. It's definitely more kung fu.
Yes.
And part 2 is more Western.
Yes.
And I understand the Pai Mei part is in there, and you have the kung fu sort of feel to that. And you have the sword fights between Elle and her. But it's really a Western. This is a slow burn of a movie. It takes its time to tell the story. And they have the 2 different styles. So I love that they had the 2 different films for sure. But it's one story to the point where, and you just commented at the end of Act 2 or Part 2 of this.
Yes.
They have a credit scene
sequence
that is the actors from the first movie.
Yes.
Like this, I mean, Tarantino wrote this as one film. It was always going to be one film. They filmed it as one film. Yep. They just decided to split it in 2. And they gave it to us within 6 months of each other. They didn't drag it out. They didn't do anything. It was like, here's 2 parts. Here you go. And I'm hoping it's like this with Kevin Costner's Western that's coming out later this year. They're 3 months apart. There's 2 parts in this movie. They're 3 months apart.
Yes.
Like, you're not going to drag this on for 4 years. I love that.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I agree that the experience of 4 hours in the theater would have been a disservice.
Yeah, that's great for a third Lord of the Rings film.
Yeah.
That you waited on. But a Tarantino film,
no.
And
the style is so different. And I mentioned that, wrote down, like, I just really, really respect that Tarantino clearly takes a different tone and focus in the Volume 2 than Volume 1. And so, yes, that Volume 1 being a homage to martial arts movies and like over the top. And it's not slow in a bad way. It's just patient. Where the first part of Volume 1 is a fight sequence.
That's what I tell people at work. I'm not slow. I'm patient. Sorry, part 1.
I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Because the thing about the Volume 1, where it opens with the sequence of her fighting Vivica A. Fox's character, like right out the gate, where she shows up at the house and starts like, this is a fight sequence. Great. Great. This is like a long time of just build up.
Well, there's virtually no fighting or death. There's only 3 deaths in this movie.
True.
So there's no fighting. There's only 3 deaths, and there's very little action of any kind.
And it has to have that, I think.
4 deaths, I guess. Pai Mei counts. So
true.
Yeah.
It has to have kind of that slow structure because you need to see Beatrix fail like she does, where this is her having accomplished what she did in the first, being highly confident of what she can now do, thinking, I just laid waste to like 88 people. And then, you know, Oranishi, and then Vivek, like whatever her character's name is, Copperhead. I'm coming for the rest of you guys.
Yeah.
And because then the volume 1 is like her almost like, I got this.
She's telling the assistant girl or whatever.
And I love that you need to have this, we're going to take you down a few pegs. But it has to be done by freaking Michael Madsen's character.
Yeah, this just like
who's so
bouncer at
Bud
a
is terrible.
At a strip club.
Like, this guy's gonna take you down. So I really, really like that Tarantino made a concerted choice to just be like, we're gonna almost like defy expectations. We're gonna give you 6 months.
Sure. Yeah.
What you're expecting is like volume 2 is gonna be even more so crazy,
a
like
bloodbath.
that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we are taking a hard left turn, and that is just a bold choice that I really respect.
Right, and I think it's a bold choice for sure, and I think it's a storyteller versus, you know, I mean, I guess storyteller versus just a guy who wanted to put out a movie and make money off of it. Like he was like, no, I need to have what's going to make this memorable is the. She's out for vengeance, don't get me wrong, but she's not out for blood.
No.
And like those are 2 different things. And this understanding of if I just make it bloodier, that's just going to be, you know, it's just going to be unnecessary. Like then by the time you want to get this emotional hit, it doesn't hit because you're like, oh, I just witnessed all this blood beforehand. You don't have that. So it definitely works there.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess off of, I don't even know if it's off of, my second point was, you know, the movie does start out slow, quote unquote. It does feature way less violence, but the dialogue is so great. The dialogue in this movie is way better than the first one.
Sure.
But my question is, does Tarantino just sit around and think of fun ways to say something in a different way? Like everything, he's always just like, I want to tell you that I'm going to the grocery store. And he's like, I'm going to take a trip down to the food mart. You know, it's like Daddy-O or whatever. It's just random stuff. I do love the way he actually, if I were to speak to him in person and he spoke like this, I would want to punch him straight in the dick.
Yeah, like no one talks like
that. Like nobody talks like this. But yet he writes like this and you're like, I love it. Why are you like you write so great, but it's not natural. He does not write in a natural style.
No,
it's very stylized, but it works.
It works for the cinematic experience of feeling like stylized and over the top.
Yeah,
and it absolutely works. And I agree. We've seen that with countless movies of his, where it doesn't have to be.
I can count. He's got 9.
Correct.
Anyway, he doesn't have to.
The action isn't, quote unquote, like action movement, like a Sorkin type of like we'll walk through things.
Right.
It's just dialogue. And we talked about it in the first episode or the volume 1, I listened to it again, just talking about his ability to write dialogue.
Yeah.
Is unparalleled.
Yep.
And that kind of back and forth. And it drives the story forward where you're building it to then when Beatrix shows up, it's probably 20 minutes into the movie, 25, thinking, oh, here we go. She's going to be able to kick ass to this dumbass guy. And she opens the door and gets shot in the chest.
Right in the chest.
And it's just like,
it's a great,
oh God, this is not, again, defying expectations and playing around with them.
Yep.
So to that end, after she gets shot, and then the chapter around, I am continuously amazed by the burial sequence.
Yep. The movie takes a shift for the better when she gets buried alive.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
But
because it does start kind of slow. You're kind of like, all right, when are we going to get to the action here?
Yeah, I just came
and
off
it's
of
fine.
her laying waste to the 88s and killing Oranishi.
Right, because
and now I'm
keep
coming
in
for
mind
this.
it's 6 months on, right?
Yes.
And so I do think if you watch these back to back, you'd be like, oh, okay, I get a little break in
A
the
reprieve,
action here
yes.
or whatever. But no, you're waiting. No, the buried alive scene is what shifts this movie.
Because the movie starts with the like kind of wedding sequence, just dialogue.
Yeah.
And then they all get killed. And then it goes to Bill and Bud talking. And you're like, we're about a half an hour in.
Yeah.
What is happening?
Right.
Not bad, just, okay, it's building the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it, to me, elevates when she comes in thinking, I'm going to kick ass, gets totally decimated.
Mm-hmm.
And that sequence where she's realizing, I'm going to be buried alive.
Yeah.
And again, spoiler, she survives.
Yeah.
But it's still tense
Yeah.
as hell because of Tarantino's ability from the writing and the direction and what he chooses to do, where in the sequence where she gets put underground and she's got the flashlight and it's just basically the sound once the flashlight goes out
Yeah.
of the
Dirt hitting. Yeah.
like her being put underground and the dirt being built on it.
Yeah.
Again, it's like we're doing something different.
Yep.
And playing with conventions. And I don't know that I really appreciate it until now watching again, where it's a similar type of effort in Volume 1, where we've got a story going forward and it cuts away when she gets out of the hospital into the truck. And it's like, oh, we're going to tell an origin story
Right.
of a major character to come. This is what Tarantino kind of does in Volume 2, where she's underground, she's trapped, and we're going to take a bit of a time to tell a lighter version of the origin story of Beatrix Kiddo.
Yeah.
Where she went to go train with a Pai Mei, and does it somewhat play out where she's got a punch in a small space? Sure, whatever. But it's a great opportunity that pays off. So it's like these dual origin stories at the same time.
But that's the point. It's the origin story of what's about to happen, and it pays off.
Exactly.
Right.
It's not unearned.
It's not forced.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I totally agree. But that whole sequence is super, super well done.
Yeah, and I like that because then it turns into the Pai Mei sequence, which is really great, and that's where, in this movie, in particular, I mean, did we talk about her?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where Uma Thurman shines from that point on. Like the first 45 minutes before she's buried alive.
Yes.
There's not much Uma Thurman in this.
No.
But then when she does go to Pai Mei and you see her as a younger woman and
super
naive
cocky,
and super cocky or whatever, and it just starts to show like there's 3 or 4 or 5 different versions of her throughout these 2 movies or this one story. And that's where like she takes on the story then at that point, right? Because then she's at Pai Mei and then she escapes and then she goes and she attacks Elle after she does that scene with Bill's brother or Bud. And I just feel like that whole sequence is when Uma Thurman takes us over. And for me, this movie and the first movie can be summed up in one phrase, which is just Uma fucking Thurman. Like it is so, she is so good in this, both movies. And then in this one in particular later when the daughter comes in, but just, she has this just undercurrent of rage the entire time without it being like the stereotypical
like teeth gnashing,
yelling and crazy and whatever. It's all just underneath. She's just been stewing for 4 years or whatever in a coma, and then after, like, she's just literally been stewing. It's all underneath, except for when she gets obviously buried. She feels like she might be about to die.
Yeah,
so she does have that reaction. But that's when for me when this movie takes a turn is the burial scene, because then Uma Thurman shows up and then is the rest of the way is driven through her, and she is so flipping good in this.
So let me list off the
what do you got?
Nominees for Best Actress this year.
2004.
Yep.
Okay.
So we talked about in the last episode Kate
Yep.
Winslet
Yeah.
for Eternal Sunshine.
Rightfully. Yeah.
Annette Bening for being Julia.
Sure.
Imelda Staunton for Vera Drake. Never seen it. Here she's fine.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, if you've seen Harry Potter 5, you know Imelda Staunton can be great in whatever she does.
Umbridge is great.
Yeah, I mean,
She's
I have
awful.
no doubt, but yeah.
And then eventual winner, Hilary Swank for Melinda Baby. Let me read you a name, which I'm confident you have no idea who she is. Catalina Sandino Moreno for Maria Full of Grace. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What the F? Like, I looked at
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, it's
how-
hard.
like,
Yeah.
and I've never seen it or whatever, but I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me.
Go woke or go broke, Oscar.
What was it, So White or whatever? Oscar's So White. But yeah, it's a travesty.
Yeah.
That she's not nominated for this. And the totality of Volume 1 and Volume 2. Like, not just what she does with the fight sequences, but I agree. She comes into this movie, the sequence underground when she's buried alive, and how she balances that like seething rage driving her. And then we'll talk about it. The final half hour is so fantastic. And her balancing the forced parental, maternal, really, aspect to it. She's unreal in this. She's so
every
goddamn
emotion
good.
that she feels, or every emotion that she shows, we feel. Like it's this like, I'm feeling what she's feeling.
And the truth
in
serum,
theory, she would be an emotionless, lack of
I'm here to
empathy
kill.
killer.
Yeah.
Which she probably was. But then in this one case, she has that and it really comes out.
Yes, I agree. I think it's unreal what she does, like career defining performance in these two movies. So just want to mention the trailer fight sequence with Elle and Beatrix.
Yep.
I love that it comes in where, Michael Madsen's character Bud is feeling all great, and then he gets killed. And Daryl Hannah is so fantastic as far as like, I cannot believe some hick MFer like you killed her. And then when she comes in and they start just the confines of like, I'm going to pull a sword out. Nope, bonk, it bops. Like, and what they do from a choreography
really
standpoint
good choreographed,
is so incredible. And you learn more about the story of like, oh, why Elle had her eye, like how she lose her eye. And I just think that fight sequence it's such a cathartic and needed element at that point in the movie where you have the slow build, really patient. Beatrix goes underground and then she comes out to seek revenge. Crazy fight. And then it's like, okay, now we can move on to the final sequence. And I just think that fight sequence.
when there's
is
an
so
hour
good.
to go.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah. And it's just like confined and claustrophobic and insane. And I usually lament like mustache twirling villains.
Sure.
And clearly Jill Hammond Hannah doesn't have a mustache, but she is so good as that like just staring at her like, I hate you so much.
The mustache twirling villain works when you're honoring the movies that had
like that style
mustache twirling. So, because I think I have a couple quibbles with this movie. And the first one too, actually, but it is over stylized. Like if you're not, and I know that's the purpose, but like it or not, you are reliant upon people watching your film and wanting to be palatable to a certain extent.
Yeah,
it is distractingly over stylized sometimes, which is Tarantino for sure. And while I know that's the point of it, and it honors those old school like westerns and kung fu, it's a bit over the top. This particular movie is also a bit long, I will say. Like I think it could have been cut a little bit.
It's like 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah, there's enough to where you're like, okay, let's get to. I know what scene is coming.
Yeah,
let's get there.
Yeah.
Minor quibbles, don't get me wrong, but. Pulling off of the Daryl Hannah part and mustache twirling. I have a I guess it's a medium quibble. And that is the emotional hit of her daughter being alive is awesome in this. It's great when she turns the corner and the daughter's alive.
Yep.
But oh, what it could have been if the audience didn't know. Like, I get the cliffhanger was great, and we talked about it, I think, in oh my god, what a great cliffhanger. It's really great. Yeah. And it is. It is as a cliffhanger to get me to the second movie. That is a great cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But by doing so, you sacrifice a huge emotional hit for the audience.
Yeah.
And now, 20 years on, I do feel like, again, we're both parents since then. Like, she turns the corner. We're all assuming she's dead. Like, you're just assuming the baby's dead, everything. Yep. We've been running right along with Beatrix the whole time, or the bride. And she turns the corner, and there's a kid. And it would be like, it would have, to me, it would have been an all-time great twist.
Sure. I'll give you that.
All-time great.
Yep.
And so I call it a medium quibble in the sense of that wouldn't have been his goal. It's not the story he's trying to tell. I get all that. But you do think, like, from a memory standpoint, it would be on lists of, like, great twist endings. Like, her daughter's alive and has been raised not only just, but as, like, she knows her as her mom. Like, he raised her as her mom and told the story and was super honest. Everything about it. He didn't hide her from, you're right. In Bill's world, Bill also kept her alive, by the way. Like, it's not, Bill has never kept her from
BB.
Yeah, he's never kept BB from Beatrix.
Yep.
Like, never. Yep. It's just like she woke up and went on a killing spree. It's like, well, she's coming for me, so I guess here we are. So I keep thinking in my brain, like, how great that would have been if she turns the corner with a gun pointed and there's a little girl pointing a water gun at her.
Yep.
The entire audience would have just been like, what? Like, nobody would have known. So I do, like, in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God. That's a medium quibble for me. It's a medium. It's not a major. It's not minor, like, stylization over it, but there is a medium of saying, like, boy, you could have really.
That's a really good point. Like, the end of Volume 1, you kind of had to have an extra, and we talked about, like, in the extra level of intrigue now, where it's not just revenge, it's she has no idea that the daughter is alive.
Right. And now we're like, all right, this is cool. Like, all right.
But I will say, if you did not know, and yes, when she comes there and she's about to thinking, I'm going to get my revenge.
Yeah.
And she finds out, along with the audience,
right,
that she has the daughter and she's alive. It would have been like jaw drop.
Back to Uma's reaction, though. Uma Thurman's reaction in that entire sequence is just like heartbreaking.
Yes.
Because she is ready. She is ready to go. She's ready to fight. And then she has to turn on a dime, and, like, it would have. Oh man!
So we've reached the obligatory segment here, where I mention that I have not seen this movie since having kids.
Sure. Yeah.
So
we probably have, but like I said, I've only seen it a couple times. Yeah.
It's been at least maybe, like, I don't know, but so again, welcome back to this part of this segment here. I agree.
Yeah, we should find a name for that.
Yeah, exactly. Dear God, when she turns and sees that BB is there.
Yep.
Again, to the fact of Uma Thurman's acting ability, what she's able to convey in terms of realizing what she thought was not there is here. And I need to then play along with this, like, you know, this fun, like when Bill's like, oh, BB, like, or Mama, you've been shot, like, oh. And then what really, no pun intended, kills me is when BB comes up and, like, hugs her and, like, Mom, like, I'm freaking crying here on the couch. I'm like, God damn it, Tarantino. Like, knock me for a loop.
Yeah.
But then again, when she kind of holds her up and the rage.
Yeah.
That Beatrix has looking at
Staring
Bill like, you MFer.
Yep.
Like, you stole this from me. And that type of like re-engaging from a revenge standpoint. You have this moment of like beautiful emotional connection and seeing what she can do as a character to balance all this, but then looking just at him like, I'm gonna, even more so now, I will lay waste to you.
Yeah, I know.
So
you do kind of
so
wish they
damn
did the
good.
music at that point too.
Yeah.
Right? They only do it the one time when she's up on the top of those dunes or whatever. But like,
Yes.
that music of the
Like
The-
that.
oh man, but
and
you
just-
didn't need it.
Yeah, in a like a 2-minute segment,
Yeah.
you have all this emotional roller coaster, but I love that it ends somewhat on that like, you bastard,
Yeah.
and what you've done. Like, to me, I knew Bill was gonna die,
Well,
but I
mean,
still knew like, oh, you are totally screwed, man.
yeah.
Because like you are playing with a different level of emotion than you ever thought possible. Oh, I'm gonna raise this kid, tell the story, no big deal. Like, hell hath no fury, man.
Yeah. Like
But-
a woman scorned for a second.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But kudos to Umar. Yeah. Umar, like, she's so yeah.
I don't have much more. I mean, I just always think like, is there a director who makes bad actors look better than they are? More like Quentin Tarantino. Like, David Carradine is outstanding in this.
He's so good.
He's outstanding. He's charismatic. He's I mean, like, you know, he's got John Travolta, Pam Grier, David Carradine, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Brad Pitt. I mean, like, he just makes bad actors look great.
Brad Pitt. You're like, wait, hold on.
One of those things is maybe
record
not like the other.
scratch. No, yeah.
But no, Carradine's great in this. You know, you needed somebody to do that, and he has just that charisma to him. He's just such a good job in this.
And to that point about Carradine is like, and it's what a genius device to build at that point almost 4 hours of this revenge tale coming together, where at the end it's not a rah I killed Bill.
No,
it's really sympathetic.
Yeah,
and
you don't
tragic.
mind that he's dead.
No,
but
I mean,
yeah,
like, it's like, good, he had to.
Right.
But it's not this like, you know, crowd pleasing aspect. It's a really wonderful and complex emotion that I still value, that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, BB has been raised by this man.
Yeah.
With the idea, like, she may come out of this coma and we'll see what happens. Seems to be a decent father.
Right.
But then when he like shoots Beatrix and be like, we're going to have an honest conversation, and talks about the Superman segment and like all these things about, you know, and at the table though, when they're having this brief moment of fighting.
Yeah. Very anticlimactic end, which is
like
actually
boom, boom,
great.
boom, boom, quick. And the 5-finger palm exploding heart thing or whatever. And he's just like, oh, he taught you. And just realizing like, okay, I'm going to die.
It's the one thing he didn't plan for. Like, nobody was ever taught that. So that was the one thing he could not
comprehend.
Yeah,
from
that
a
it would
defensive
happen.
standpoint.
Yep.
Which, again, it's just that final, like, fantastic element from a writing standpoint. And I agree. Like, David Carradine is so great, and it's just like a sympathetic death that when he walks away and dies, it isn't just like F yeah, this is great. It's just like,
you're not. Yeah, I mean,
God, this like is so more complex than I expected.
It's rewarding, but you're not happy about it.
No,
almost.
I agree. So that to me, I agree. Like, he does so great. Tarantino with like decent actors to make better stuff. But again, it's just his writing is, dear God, unreal. That's all I got.
I'm going up there, I'm going to try it, I'm going to let the jury decide.
As we close out our spotlight segment, we come to our final takes called The Verdict.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
This is where Tim and I give our final verdicts after rewatching the film and decide whether or not the movie held up over the course of 2 decades.
Now you get out of here before I call the bailiff and have you thrown in jail.
This is The Verdict.
I said to hell with it, to hell with it.
All right, well, my verdict, Kill Bill Volume 2, and for that matter, Kill Bill Volume 1, represent what works well when Hollywood allows creators to create. Quentin Tarantino delivers yet another film that is simultaneously enthralling, dramatic, funny, and beautiful. Which, again, we didn't talk about the cinematography, but it's outstanding.
True.
What sets these movies aside from his others is a career-defining performance from Uma Thurman. Thurman shows true, passionate rage without any overacting or missed notes of any kind. As we discussed in part 1, I may not put this above 4 or 5 of his other films, but it is yet another reminder just how great Quentin Tarantino is as a writer and director. I have 4.5 out of 5 on this one, and as a combo, I probably would put it as a film total.
Yeah.
It's outstanding. I love it.
Love it. Kill Bill Volume 2 is like the 1A to Volume 1's 1B. For me, in terms of, I like this one more than Volume 1, but we're talking about like splitting hairs depending on what your experience is like. Well, in that both are equally incredible, compelling, and truly just enjoyable stories. What elevates Volume 2 for me is the, spoiler, not surprising, the daughter storyline. The twist near the end. And I actually love it. We talked about the emotional payoff could have been so much better. But that being said, it's still a sucker punch when she comes out. It's bringing unexpected and surprising pathos to what until then was really just largely weightless fun. I agree. With a career-topping performance from Uma Thurman, Volume 2 shows director-writer Tarantino coming into his greatness as a writer and director. 4.5 out of 5.
Come on, not my beer.
With our reactions and verdicts to the movie out of the way, we move on to the reactions to our beers that we drank while rewatching our subject movie.
And if you want to have sex with a disgusting bad brewer with a terrible attitude,
this is where we take a look back at our beers and give our expert ratings for our drinking buddies.
Ugh, whatever. Hey, here's the truth.
This is Drinking Buddies.
Let's get weird.
We started the evening with Ursa Minor out of Duluth, Minnesota. Somewhat a theme beer.
Well, you picked it because it was a theme beer.
I
Don't say somewhat.
I like it.
Don't say don't undersell it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. You're very kind.
Yeah.
They're badass warrior goddess.
Yep.
Seems pretty on point for Beatrix Kiddo. They're hazy IPA. For me, it was a 4. It was a nice hazy, good, solid kind of like mass-produced option. And it was a nice like bite, but good flavor. I liked it. It's good. 4.
I don't know if it's because I haven't had that much beer this week or not. I had a 4.25. I mean, I do really like Ursa Minor a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just drinking through it. I'm like, this is really good.
Yeah, it's a good way to start.
Yeah, it was. No, we had a good night of beer. Yep,
I agree, absolutely. And then
we've had some stinkers lately, so it's good.
We're back, baby.
Yeah.
Social Project Brewing Company out of Bentonville, Arkansas, which I was there last week. Recently, or this month.
Yeah.
Which
this family has recently given enough of its money to the South. Let's be done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're keeping it north of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yes.
Which, by the way, Bentonville has a whole bunch of mid beer, but this was from a company I really enjoyed, the Social Project. Their Castaway Tropical Punch Sour, and for me, I loved it. It's like a 4.5 for me. It tasted like a sour tropical Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And like most tall boys, I had to split it. So thankfully we split it, but I loved it. It's like a very, very nice sour for me. So yeah, 4.5.
There's just something ironic about a brewery called the Social Project in the South, but all right. I have 4.25, but I could have finished a tall boy of this. I really enjoyed it. Like, and it was very, because it wasn't thick. It wasn't lactosey.
Sure.
It was just
very
sour.
clean. Yeah.
Yeah. It was clear too. Like, I mean, it was a really well done, it was a really good sort of old school at this point sour.
Right?
It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. So thanks for bringing that back.
Yeah. It's good. And the other stuff from them was
it has been really on point. If you ever see it, do it.
Somehow in the Arkansas area. Then we had from Surly Brewing out of Minneapolis. Again, another theme beer option there.
Yeah.
Raging Furious.
The rare theme beer that Steve buys.
I was like, nice. I'm so happy for you. Their Imperial IPA. We've talked before, and forgive me here, but I always want to be like, I wish I could quit you, Surly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you make something like
It's
this.
a perfect example of it.
And God damn it.
Yep.
11%. So definitely like, wow, very high for a Imperial IPA. I think I had a 4.5.
Yep.
For me. This was like a bitter, punch you in the face. We're not messing around, but damn good Imperial IPA. Well done.
If you take abrasive out of the mix, it's the best thing Surly has done in 10 years, 8 years. I mean, it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, Todd the Axeman was good, and they have other good beers.
Yep.
And this is finally, Surly is like, let's prove that we can brew like a good beer.
Yes. Like
And this
standout beer.
And I don't even think it's a double Furious. I think it is, but I mean, like Furious is a fine beer, and we owe the Minneapolis beer scene owes a ton to Furious.
Huge debt of gratitude.
But Surly hasn't. This is the best thing they've put out in a long time.
Yes.
I have 4.5 out of 5 as well. First time I had it, I was like, do I love this or do I like it? Is this, if somebody else put this out, would it be
sure?
Is it better because Surly put it out for some reason? Because I maybe am expecting a mid beer. Because we had the Double Saga.
Yes.
Which I did, the Imperial Saga, I started liking better as it went on. I will admit, I enjoyed it better. But I thought it would be, like, when I got this, I thought it would be more like that.
Yeah.
This is way better than the Imperial Saga. So I 4.5 out of 5. It's really good.
And a lot of stuff like is hazy double IPAs and kind of like more of like a sweet type of like kind of very palatable. This leans into, I think, the old school Surly of like, we're going to punch you in the mouth.
Yep.
And you have to really work to enjoy it, but it's so freaking good. Nice. And then we had Revelation Ale from Halleck, Minnesota. Their peanut butter stout. It was a 3.75 for me. It was nice. It wasn't good or bad. I just was like, yeah, it's a pretty standard peanut butter stout. So
yeah, I have 3.5 out of 5. It tastes fine. When beers like this, the peanut butter is always the barometer.
Yeah, it's not enough. I wish it was
There's
more.
not enough, and it is very clearly a peanut butter extract or some sort of like.
Yeah.
It tastes different, and we've had.
It is peanut butter extract.
Well, yeah. And you can taste if it's powdered peanut butter extract, and then you have the Montgomery Brewing one, the peanut butter Buster Porter, and then Waconia Brewing has theirs. That is that peanut butter
and Dangerous Man type.
Yeah, there are other ones that are like, oh, this tastes like real peanut butter we're using here, and you can tell the difference.
Yep. And
it just drops it off. The cacao nibs are fine in there, and the base stout is fine, so it's 3.5. But there is nothing about this that I'm like. I mean, the Revelation has made way better beers than this that I would hand off to people,
and that's what I was hoping for.
Our,
yeah, I know, right?
Episodes. So a 3.5 out of 5. It's the weakest of the night, but it's honestly one of the better beer nights we've had in a while.
It is.
The exciting quiz program 21.
Our final segment of the episode is Quiz Show.
I have stood on the shoulders of life, and I've never gotten down into the dirt to build.
Where in our research for our subject film, we find some interesting trivia nuggets that we hope will stump the other and possibly intrigue you.
This is not McCarthyism. We're not here to expose for the sake of exposure.
This is Quiz Show.
Well, evidently certain of the contestants were given the answers in advance.
Cheating on a quiz show. It's like plagiarizing a comic strip.
I admit I started with 1.5. And now I have 4. So I will admit, not to like, oh, look at me, pump on my chest. Because I had 1.5, but we had talked about Michael Parks.
Well, it's just his name. But...
No, I know, but I'm just playing the two actors. And so I had I was like, is Tim going to like this one? But then the score came up, which, by the way, was a great score.
Yes.
And so I actually have 4.
Ooh.
What do you got?
I have 3.
All right. I guess I'll go first, though.
Okay.
Well, okay. So speaking of Michael Parks, we talked about him. He plays double duty in these films. He plays the sheriff in part 1.
Earl McGraw.
Yeah.
Per the credits.
Am I stepping on one of your?
No, this is what they said in the credits, yeah.
He plays the sheriff, Earl McGraw, and then Esteban Vallejo, or whatever it is, in part 2. However, shockingly, a white man from California was not the original choice to play a Mexican brothel owner.
Oh, I don't know
in this movie. The part was supposed to be played by someone else, but that person could not make the first table read, and so Parks filled in. And Tarantino liked Parks' portrayal so much that the original actor was eventually just either fired or not brought in. Which, by the way, Parks does a great job in this.
Oh, he
does a great job in this.
God.
He does a really good job. So what classic actor featured in a classic space-themed revenge film of his own that we didn't talk about earlier was supposed to portray Esteban? And I can give you the movie if you'd like.
A space-themed revenge.
What are the 2 greatest space film franchises of all time?
We have Star Wars and Star Trek.
Okay, so Star Trek has a revenge film in it.
Oh, gosh.
There you go. There's your clue. Second one.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Khan.
Yeah, it was Khan.
Freaking Khan.
Yeah, he was also...
He was originally... Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I forget his name.
Ricardo Montalban.
Montalban!
Yeah.
I shall leave you as you left me, as you left her, marooned for all eternity in the center of a dead planet. Buried alive. Buried alive.
Montalban!
Yeah.
Yes!
Ricardo Montalban was supposed to be, but he couldn't make the table read. And,
oh, my God.
Which actually, Montalban would have been awesome to pull in. That would have been such a Tarantino choice, right?
Such an amazing choice.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, that would have been good. That's a good deep cut.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really good. Well, I'm going to play off that. So Michael Parks, as you mentioned, plays 2 characters in these 2 different movies. Oddly enough, he would play Earl McGraw, the cop, again in what 2007 double feature films.
Oh man, it's Machete Kills, right?
No,
it's
you're close.
What are the 2 of those? Oh man, because Robert Rodriguez's films.
One of them is yes.
I can't remember the names of them though. Death Proof.
Death Proof is Tarantino's.
Yeah, and then what's the other one? Because they released them at the same time.
Yep.
I'm like picturing the
with
posters
with
and everything.
The gun leg of whatever her name is.
Yeah, that's why I thought. Yeah, what is it?
Planet Terror and Death Proof under the collective element of or movie of Grindhouse.
Yeah, the Grindhouse.
Yes.
Films. All right.
Nice.
All right.
Ooh, so
that's a wrong. I know.
We'll give you half.
All right. All right. So, Kill Bill Volume 1 featured music by RZA, RZA, or whatever, as we talked about. And while this film's music is similar in many ways, it is actually done by someone else. Tim, what personal friend and fellow director
did
the music for this film?
Fellow director and friend?
I'll give you a hint.
Did music?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's the hint?
Tarantino has started one of his films.
Rodriguez?
Yeah, we literally just talked about
we're talking about
Robert Rodriguez did the music for this movie.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
Holy cow. I had no idea.
Yep.
Here I am saying Ennio Morricone. It's
Morricone,
no, man, that's a bit
the music's outstanding.
High caliber, but whoa. And the music is really good.
Yep.
What to do, but okay. Nice. I like that. So this is Michael Madsen's 3rd time working with director Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
With the second obviously being Volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
So can you name the other 2 films with which they worked together?
Wait, is the 3rd film, but the second was part 1?
It's the 3rd, but they made 2 other ones together.
Well, I
messed with the
Reservoir
math.
Dogs for sure.
There you go. And they filmed another one together after this.
Oh, I see where you're. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. All right.
So been the
Ooh.
What other Tarantino film?
Was Michael Madsen?
Yep.
What am I forgetting?
It's low on our list.
Oh, he's in Hateful Eight.
He is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I actually like Hateful Eight better, but more over time. But yeah, that's right. He's in Hateful Eight. I always forget.
He is, right?
Yeah.
He's like super low billing, but yeah, he's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I agree. That movie is not. I mean, if it wasn't Tarantino, it'd be fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
But relative,
Was that your third or second?
That's my second.
Okay. All right. So, as I just established, director Robert Rodriguez scores this film, and he did so for a lofty sum of $1. So, effectively, he did it as a favor.
Sure.
Tarantino returned that favor and directed a portion of what classic Robert Rodriguez film in 2005?
Spy Kids?
No,
No,
that was
no.
2003, but that's all right.
2005 classic. Oh gosh. With Banderas. No?
You blew
I thought I did.
Sin City.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Come on, Tim.
Totally.
Come on.
I forgot he did Sin City. Yes.
Yeah.
I could see it.
He did
Yeah.
so he turned around and helped him direct parts of that
Yes.
as a thank you for
That
doing
makes
the music
sense.
for $1.
Oh, gosh. Totally forgot that he did that. Nice.
Great movie.
So, last one of our friend Michael Parks.
Mm-hmm.
He
Jeez.
had multiple collaborations
Wow.
with Tarantino here,
Uh-huh.
but he had similar collaborations, multiple, with writer-director Kevin Smith
Sure.
in what 2011 and 2014 horror films.
Well, it's Tusk and oh god, what's the other one? God, he's the preacher. It's Red.
Yes.
Red. It's something. It's Red something.
Red State. I'll give you that.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah.
Red State.
Yeah.
Have you seen Tusk? I think we
Yes,
talked about it.
I've seen it once, and that's enough.
It's so messed up and
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
It's
I never need to see it again. No.
But it's like if you had thought the guy from Clerks
Yeah.
would do Tusk. and
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. Kevin
or
Smith
Red
has
State,
a really interesting filmography.
he sure does. All right,
Really
that's
interesting. Okay, so
What's the last one?
my last one I added during the movie, the actress who plays BB, the daughter.
Oh, okay.
What?
I'm
You
like,
know?
oh no, I have no idea.
All right.
She came on screen. I'm like,
Well, you're gonna know
Frick,
because
he's
I'll
gonna
give you.
ask.
And my hints are what's giving you your
okay.
Answers tonight. The actress plays BB is Perla Haney Jardine. She's not been in many movies over the last 20 years, but she does have some roles in films such as Spider-Man 3 as the daughter of Sandman, and as the oldest version of Steve Jobs' daughter in the Michael Fassbender Steve Jobs. So, they're out on the parking ramp or whatever.
Sure.
Her most recent film role was a pretty key role as a hippie who sells an acid-soaked cigarette. In what movie?
Is it Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? That's so great.
Yeah, she sells Brad Pitt the acid-soaked cigarette that
my
turns
gosh.
into what he smokes at the end.
I need to watch that again.
Oh, it's great. It is great.
It's been a while. God, I think I've seen it once.
It's great. It is legitimately great. Like, that movie's legitimately great. That's
okay. That's good. Very nice.
I think the problem with Rant about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I think was the best movie I actually kind of thought it, because no Tarantino film has won Best Picture.
Sure.
And so I thought it was going to win that year. Ultimately, the problem with that movie is it just feels like a way to get to this weird torture porny end.
Yeah.
But then on rewatch, it's just a love letter to that era.
Sure.
I mean, it's really well done. And Brad Pitt is flipping fantastic. And by the way, I would probably die on the hill if that's Leo's best performance.
He's so good.
The
two of them, yes.
It is.
Oh, God.
Because apparently, Tarantino just apparently has scrapped his next movie, which was supposed to be called The Critic or something like that. It was his last movie. And apparently he scrapped it, and it was supposed to have Cliff Booth like a couple years later. It was like a movie critic thing where somebody's critiquing Cliff Booth.
Okay.
But he's like scrapped it now, I guess, and who knows what's happening because fuck Tarantino.
But if you've set yourself of like, I can only do 10.
Well, that was his problem in the first place.
Like last one,
Frickin'
come
Tarantino.
on.
I'm so tired of that. Just make movies. Like, don't get me wrong. You don't need to be Clint Eastwood when you're 90 and just walking around like. I saw a picture of him recently, and he's like got this like scraggly beard, like freaking Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins. Like seriously, it's just terrible. And he's like walking around, he's like, hey, because he's got a new movie coming out. Because of course he does.
Of course he does.
I know. I'm like, so I don't need that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But come on, dude, tell a story.
Yeah, you can more than 10.
All right. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of the episode.
Nice.
Be sure to find all of our episodes on your favorite streaming platforms and watch out for upcoming happy hour on the films of 1999, as well as our rewatch of Spider-Man 2. We'll find us on the web via the metaverse of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and head to 20years4beers.com for more info. We want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. This has been 20 Years, 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks.
TikTok made me do it. I'm not slow. I'm patient.
This guy's going to take you down. She's going to be able to kick ass, this dumbass guy.
Oh, look at me. You know, pump out my chest.
Montalban!
Yeah.
Cut!